What if your deepest fears aren't just in your mind, but echoes from a past you don't remember? My therapist promised healing, but her hypnosis session unlocked something far more terrifying than old trauma. It revealed a past life, and the horror waiting there transcended time itself. I went to therapy for anxiety, but I left convinced I was reliving a nightmare from centuries ago. Her hypnosis session didn't just uncover forgotten memories, it ripped open a portal to a past life so horrifying it made my present reality feel like a fever dream. You won't believe what she made me see. Before you ever consider trying past life regression, you need to hear my story. What started as a simple hypnosis session with my therapist spiraled into a chilling encounter with forgotten horrors. I thought I was exploring my past, but I uncovered a terrifying truth that proved some things are better left buried. The first thing I remember is the cold. A cold so deep and ancient, it felt like it was in my bones, not on my skin. It was the kind of cold that doesn't come from a drafty window or a broken furnace, but from a place of absolute stillness and silence. Then came the name, whispered in the back of my mind, a name that wasn't mine, Elias. I woke up on the plush leather couch in my therapist's office, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The room was warm, tastefully decorated with abstract art and thriving plants, but the chill lingered, a phantom sensation clinging to me. My therapist, Dr. Alistair Finch, was watching me from his chair, his expression a calm, professional mask. "Welcome back, Mark," he said, his voice a soothing baritone. "How do you feel?" I couldn't answer. I just stared at him, the name Elias echoing in the sudden emptiness of my mind. To understand how I ended up on that couch, you need to know about my particular brand of anxiety. I'm a 32-year-old software developer. My life is logical, built on code and concrete results. If-then statements, clear inputs and outputs. But for as long as I can remember, I've had this thing, a completely irrational, paralyzing phobia of antique, ornate mirrors. It sounds ridiculous, I know. My friends would joke about it. "Afraid you'll see a vampire?" they'd tease. But it wasn't a joke to me. Walking into an antique shop was my personal hell. Visiting old houses or museums was a calculated exercise in avoiding certain rooms. My ex-girlfriend once brought home a beautiful silver-framed mirror from a flea market, and I had a full-blown panic attack. I couldn't breathe, my vision tunneled, and I felt this overwhelming dread, this certainty that if I looked into it, something would look back. Not my reflection, but something else, something ancient and wrong. She returned the mirror the next day, and our relationship didn't last much longer after that.
How do you explain to someone you love that you're terrified of a piece of furniture? That was my breaking point. My phobia wasn't just a quirk anymore. It was actively sabotaging my life. So I did what any logical person would do. I sought help. I found Dr. Finch through a recommendation. He was highly regarded, specializing in phobias and anxiety disorders. His office was an oasis of calm in the bustling city. He was patient and kind, and for months we tried everything: cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, which was a disaster, involving me staring at pictures of mirrors on a computer screen until I was drenched in sweat, breathing exercises, you name it. We made some progress, but the core fear, that deep, primal terror, remained untouched. It was like trying to put out a forest fire with a garden hose. One day, after another frustrating session, Dr. Finch leaned forward, a thoughtful look on his face. "Mark," he said, "we've been approaching this as a product of your current life, a learned fear. But what if its roots go deeper? Have you ever considered hypnotherapy? Specifically, past life regression. I almost laughed. I was a man of science and logic. Past lives? Reincarnation? It sounded like something you'd find in the New Age section of a bookstore, not a licensed therapist's office. I told him as much. I'm a skeptic, Doc, I said. I don't really buy into all that. He smiled patiently. You don't have to, he explained. Think of it this way. The mind is a complex thing. Sometimes it creates powerful metaphors to process trauma. Whether you believe it's a real past life or simply your subconscious creating a narrative to explain your fear is irrelevant. The goal is to access that narrative, understand it, and disconnect the emotional charge. It's a tool, nothing more. His explanation was so reasonable. He framed it in a way my logical brain could accept. It wasn't about spirituality. It was about psychology. He wasn't asking me to believe in ghosts, just in the power of my own mind. I was desperate, and his confidence was infectious. What did I have to lose? So I agreed. The first session was underwhelming. He guided me into a state of deep relaxation. His voice was a steady anchor as I felt my body grow heavy and my mind drift. He asked me to imagine a long hallway with many doors, each one leading to a different time. It felt like a guided meditation, peaceful and a little sleepy. I saw some fleeting, blurry images, a dusty road, the feel of rough-spun cloth, the smell of wood smoke, but nothing concrete. I came out of it feeling relaxed, but that was about it. It's a process, Dr. Finch assured me. The mind needs to learn to let go. We tried again the following week. This time he was more direct. Once I was in that deeply relaxed state, he said, I want you to go to the source of your fear. Don't force it. Just allow your mind to drift to the origin of the anxiety you feel around mirrors.
Go there now. And that's when the world dissolved. It wasn't like falling asleep. It was like being pushed hard into a different reality. The warmth of the office vanished, replaced by that bone-deep chill. The faint scent of leather and paper was gone, replaced by the smell of damp stone, beeswax, and something else, something faintly metallic, like old blood. My eyes were closed, but I could see. I wasn't in a modern office anymore. I was standing on a cold stone floor. The air was heavy and still. The only light came from a flickering candelabra on a nearby table, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The room was opulent, but decaying. The velvet on the chairs was worn, the wood dark and heavy. And directly in front of me, dominating the room, was a mirror. It was huge, at least 7 feet tall, framed in elaborately carved blackened silver. The carvings were of twisting vines and strange, leering faces. The glass itself was dark, cloudy, not like a modern mirror, but like a pool of still, black water. And I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that I was not Mark. My name was Elias. I could feel the clothes on my skin, heavy and restrictive, a scratchy wool coat, a high collar. My hands, when I looked at them, were not my own. They were slender, pale with long fingers. I was younger, thinner, and I was filled with a sense of suffocating dread. In my mind, I was screaming, this isn't real. It's just hypnosis. But the sensory details were too perfect. The way the candlelight glinted off the tarnished silver frame, the faint groan of the floorboards under my feet, the oppressive silence of the house. Dr. Finch's voice was a distant echo, a thread connecting me to my own time. "Where are you, Elias?" he asked, and the name felt so natural on his lips. I tried to speak, but the voice that came out was thin and reedy, laced with an accent I didn't recognize. "I'm in the study,"
he asked. "Who told you not to come in here?" Dr. Finch's voice prompted gently. "The master," I said, the words tasting like poison. "He said the glass is hungry. He said it remembers." I felt a compulsion, a magnetic pull toward the mirror. I didn't want to go. Every cell in my body was screaming to run, to flee this cold, dead room, but my feet moved as if they had a will of their own. I stepped closer until I was just a few feet from the dark glass. My reflection was a distorted, shadowy version of the stranger, Elias. My face was pale, eyes wide with terror. But as I stared, something shifted. The reflection began to waver, like heat haze off asphalt. Behind my own terrified eyes in the glass, another shape was forming. It was indistinct at first, a smudge of deeper darkness in the already dark mirror, a flicker of movement in the periphery.
I became obsessed. I spent hours online, falling down rabbit holes of genealogy, historical records, and local folklore. I searched for Elias, for records of a master who owned a large estate, for any mention of a haunted mirror. I found nothing. It was all a dead end, which only fueled my fear that this was all in my head. I called Dr. Finch, my voice shaking. "What did you do to me?" I demanded. He remained unnervingly calm. "We've access to deep-seated trauma narrative, Mark. It feels real because to your subconscious it is. The key now is to integrate it, to understand that the story of Elias is not your story. His fear is not your fear." His words sounded hollow, clinical. He was trying to put what I experienced into a neat little psychological box, but it felt like trying to capture a hurricane in a glass jar. It was too big, too powerful, too real. Here's a question for you all. Imagine you're in my shoes. You're a rational person, but you've just experienced something that defies all logic, something that feels more real than your own life. Do you trust the professional, telling you it's all in your head, a metaphor? Or do you trust your own gut, which is screaming that you're in real danger? What would you do in this situation? Let me know in the comments, because I honestly felt like I was completely alone with this. I decided to trust my gut. I felt like I was being haunted. Not by a ghost, but by a memory, and the only way to end it was to find the source. If Elias was real, then that mirror had to be real too. Driven by a desperate, morbid curiosity, I started doing something I never thought I would. I started visiting antique shops. Not the trendy, gentrified ones downtown, but the old, dusty, forgotten ones on the outskirts of the city, the kind of places that smelled of mothballs and decay. It was torture. Every time I saw a mirror, my fight-or-flight response kicked in. But I forced myself to look, to push through the panic, scanning each one for that distinctive black and silver frame with its leering faces. I did this for weeks. I found nothing. My hope and my sanity were beginning to fray. I was starting to believe Dr. Finch was right, that I was just chasing a phantom created in my own mind. And then I found it. It was in the back of a cluttered, dimly lit shop called Curios and Relics, tucked away behind a stack of old furniture and covered in a dusty sheet. I almost missed it, but a sliver of the frame was visible, and the dark, intricate carving caught my eye. My blood ran cold. I pulled the sheet off, and my breath hitched in my throat. It was the mirror. There was no doubt. It was the same massive size, the same black and silver frame, the same grotesque, twisting vines and leering faces that had been seared into my memory. Standing there, in that dusty shop, I could feel a faint chill emanating from it, a familiar bone-deep cold. The shop owner, a wizened old man with cloudy eyes, shuffled over.
"Ah, the Alistair glass," he rasped, polishing his spectacles. "Been in my family for generations. Never could bring myself to display it properly. Gives off a bad feeling, you know?" My head snapped up. "What did you call it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The Alistair glass," he repeated. "Story goes it belonged to an old recluse from the 1800s, a nasty fellow named Alistair. They said he practiced strange arts. Said he trapped something in that mirror. Or maybe something in the mirror trapped him." Alistair. The same name as my therapist, Dr. Alistair Finch. The coincidence was too great, too specific. A wave of nausea washed over me. Was this some kind of sick, elaborate game? Did Dr. Finch know about this mirror? Did he guide me to this memory on purpose? The shop owner seemed oblivious to my turmoil. Legend says his young ward, a boy named Elias, disappeared one night,
vanished without a trace from a locked room. The only thing they found was that mirror, cold as ice, even in the middle of summer. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Elias was real. The master, Alistair, was real. And this was the mirror that had taken him. My rational mind was screaming at me to run, to get as far away from this cursed object as possible, to go to the police, to tell someone, anyone. But who would believe me? A man with a phobia who claims his therapist made him remember being swallowed by a haunted mirror from the 19th century? Had been locked up. And another darker part of me, a part that felt like it belonged to Elias, was drawn to it. I had to know. I had to face it. I felt that if I didn't, I would be running from that cold room for the rest of my life. I looked at the price tag. It was astronomical, far more than I could afford. But then I looked into the glass. It was so dark and cloudy my reflection was barely visible, just a faint ghostly outline. For a split second, I thought I saw another face superimposed over mine, pale, terrified, and familiar. Elias. I had to have it. I maxed out my credit cards and drained my savings. I arranged for movers. I couldn't bring myself to touch it, to deliver it to my apartment. They complained about its unnatural weight and the chill it gave off. When it was finally standing in my living room, my small, modern apartment was transformed. The mirror dominated the space, a dark, Gothic portal in the middle of my clean, minimalist life. It seemed to suck the light and warmth from the room. For the first few days, I just coexisted with it. I would throw a blanket over it, unable to look, but I could still feel its presence. My apartment was always cold now, no matter how high I cranked the heat. The shadows seemed to move when I wasn't looking. I barely ate or slept. I was living on coffee and fear. I knew this couldn't go on. I had to confront it.
I had two choices. Get rid of it and live forever with the unanswered questions and the haunting echoes of Elias's fear, or face whatever was inside it and end this, one way or another. I chose the latter. One night, I stood before it, my heart pounding in my chest. I took a deep breath and pulled the blanket off. I forced myself to look into the dark glass. At first, there was only my own reflection, a pale, sleep-deprived man staring back. I waited. The silence in the apartment was absolute. And then, it began. The temperature in the room plummeted. I could see my breath fogging in the air. The surface of the mirror began to ripple, the reflection of my living room twisting and distorting. Then it cleared, but it wasn't my living room anymore. I was looking into Elias's study. The candelabra, the worn velvet chairs, the stone walls, it was all there, clear as day, like I was looking through a window into the past. And I was in there. Elias was standing there, his back to me, facing the room. I felt a strange sense of vertigo, of being in two places at once. Then Elias slowly turned, and my blood froze. His face was ashen, his eyes hollowed out, filled with an ancient, unspeakable terror. He looked straight at me, not at my reflection, but at me, Mark, standing in the 21st century. He opened his mouth, and though no sound came through the glass, I could read the single desperate word on his lips: run. Behind him, in the study, the shadow began to form. The tall, gaunt figure, the master, Alistair. It coalesced out of the darkness in the corner of the room, a being of pure malevolence. It glided towards Elias, who was frozen in terror. And then the most horrifying thing happened. The figure in the mirror looked past Elias. Its featureless face turned and looked directly at me. It saw me. It knew I was there. It raised its long skeletal hand and pointed. A jolt like electricity shot through my body. The connection between me and Elias, the one Dr. Finch had opened, was now a bridge. The entity knew there was another soul tethered to its prisoner. I felt a pulling sensation, a psychic tug, as if it was trying to drag me through the glass and into that cold, dead room with Elias. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. This wasn't a memory anymore. This was happening right now. The barrier of time was gone. The figure reached for Elias, its shadowy tendrils wrapping around him. Elias screamed, a silent, agonizing scream that I felt in the depths of my soul. And as the darkness consumed him, his eyes, locked on mine, changed. The terror was replaced by a look of grim resignation, and then a flash of cold, calculating intelligence. His expression shifted into something I recognized with a sickening jolt of clarity. It was the calm, professional, slightly condescending expression of my therapist, Dr. Alistair Finch. The master and the therapist were one and the same. Not a descendant, not a reincarnation, the same entity. Ageless, predatory. Dr.
Finch hadn't been trying to heal me. He had been looking for a doorway. He sensed the old connection, the trauma I carried from Elias's life, and he used his position of trust to pry it open, to find his old prisoner, and maybe to find a new one. My phobia wasn't just a scar from a past life. It was a warning, a psychic alarm system left behind by Elias, trying to keep me away from the one thing that could lead the monster back to him. And now, to me. The image in the mirror shifted. Elias was gone. The study was gone. Now only the gaunt, shadowy figure of Alistair remained. And it was pressing against the glass, its form becoming more solid, more defined. The glass began to crack under the pressure, thin, spider-webbing fractures spreading across the surface, emanating from where its hand was pressed. It was trying to break through. I was paralyzed with fear. My mind was screaming, but my body wouldn't move. And then a final echo from Elias, a last surge of his will merged with mine, screamed a single thought into my mind. Break the glass. Break the prison. It was my only chance. I broke out of my paralysis, scrambling backward, my eyes searching for a weapon, anything. I grabbed a heavy iron fireplace poker from the hearth. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold it. The cracking sound from the mirror was getting louder, sharper. The cold was unbearable. I lifted the poker, the iron feeling impossibly heavy. The thing in the mirror reared back as if it knew what I was about to do. For a single, eternal second, I hesitated, but the memory of Elias's final, desperate plea pushed me forward. With a scream torn from the bottom of my lungs, a scream that was part mine and part his, I swung. The impact was explosive. The sound was deafening, a shriek of tortured glass and something else, a high-pitched, inhuman wail that seemed to come from the mirror itself. The blackened silver frame buckled. The glass didn't just shatter, it vaporized. A wave of force, of icy, foul-smelling air erupted from the frame, throwing me backward across the room. I hit the wall hard, and my head slammed against the drywall. Shards of glass rained down like black snow. And then, silence. A profound, absolute silence. The oppressive cold was gone, replaced by the normal, ambient warmth of my apartment. The feeling of being watched, the constant dread that had plagued me for weeks, had vanished. It was over. I lay there on the floor, amid the wreckage, gasping for air, every muscle in my body aching. I was alive. I was free. If you've been on this terrifying journey with me so far, and you want to hear how I've been piecing my life back together since, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps more than you know just to feel like I'm not alone with this. I never went back to Dr. Finch. What would I say? What could I prove? I looked up his practice online a week later. The website was gone. The phone number was disconnected.
It was as if he had never existed. I don't know if he was a man, a spirit, or something else entirely, an ancient predator wearing a human face. All I know is that he found me, and he used my pain to open a door that should have remained sealed forever. My phobia of mirrors is gone. I can look at my reflection now without panic. But what I see is different. My eyes look older. I carry the memory of Elias's sacrifice within me. I am living for two people now, and I will never forget the price he paid. The anxiety I went to therapy to cure is gone too. But it's been replaced by something else, a certainty, a knowledge that the world is far older, stranger, and more dangerous than we can possibly imagine. We build our lives on a thin crust of logic and reason, but just beneath the surface, ancient horrors are waiting. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Some memories are meant to stay buried. So here's my final question for you. Do you think I'm free? Or did I just break the cage, letting the monster out into the world? Do you think Dr. Finch, Alistair, is still out there looking for another patient, another soul with a crack in their past? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Because honestly, some nights when the house is quiet, I still feel a faint chill in the air. And I'm still looking for answers.